And we're hearing from our assignment desk, at the moment, no evacuations have been ordered at this time. So we hope that is going to be the case as the night goes on, that this is good news, that this is going to be contained just to the refinery. Again, this is the Marathon Refinery south of the 405 at Wilmington, having a huge impact on traffic tonight on the 405 freeway. As we could see from Air 7 HD, the freeway completely shut down southbound and northbound at the Wilmington Avenue area. This is the largest refinery on the West Coast, according to Marathon's website, with a very large crude oil capacity of 300,000 barrels per day. They take in heavy crude from California's San Joaquin Valley and the LA Basin, as well as crude from Alaska, South America, West Africa, and other international sources, making this the largest refinery here in the West.
All right, you can expect the price of gas to increase in response to this or in the wake of this. Don't know for how long, don't know how soon, but that's something we typically will see. The hope is that no one has been injured, no lives have been lost here. We await some official word to that effect, but you see the flames still shooting far into the air. Christy, can you get some sense of how high the flames are shooting into the air?
Yeah, you're talking about a couple 100 feet up into the air, and obviously the extreme temperature that a fire like this creates. You can see those steel metal beams literally melting right next to those flames there, and I would say at least 150 to 200 feet up into the air. And you mentioned that Phillips 66 fire. You know, one of the things I recall about that was that there was a little bit of time between the time that the resident fire department and the LA County Fire Department was able to access the refinery. It does look like LA County is getting involved here, although right now all I can see in this shot right here appear to be Marathon personnel, including that fire truck right there. That looks like a Marathon refinery fire truck. So you see a number of streams coming from quite a distance away. They can't even get too close to the fire because it's extremely, extremely hot. They're going to have to wait till they can shut off some of the sources of flames here, which obviously is going to be an oil-related fire, obviously. But you can see they have managed at least to get a number of streams on the fire. So that's a promising sign and some good news that they've been able to at least access that fire with water already.
All right, well, we were talking about the smoke, the huge plume going into the air, and it would be good to know which direction that smoke is blowing. I wonder if we can bring in meteorologist Dallas Rains to see what the winds are like tonight, Dallas. The wind direction, if you might have an idea right now in this Carson area.
Absolutely, Michelle. We've been looking at the latest observations from around there. Very light winds, generally out of the north and northeast. And so that would push the toxic fumes more toward the south and southwest. So if you live in an area which is south or southwest of the explosion site there, that would be the most dangerous as far as any pollutions coming from the explosion itself. But wind conditions are quite light. There's a strong air temperature inversion, though, that has developed at about 1,500 feet, and that means that some of that is being trapped within that boundary layer under 1,500 feet of height there.
All right, so judging by what you're telling me, when you look to the southwest of this, what you're talking about here, it would be I'm guessing Avalon Village would be an area that would be of concern. Talking about Lomita Boulevard and Main Street, Lomita and Avalon, Wilmington and Avalon are some of the residential areas that appear to be in the zone where some of that smoke would be heading. And also, yeah, Sepulveda Boulevard heading through Carson and into the Harbor City area, and around Pacific Coast Highway, Lomita Boulevard, and Avalon, Main Street, Wilmington, those areas. So we're talking about Watson Junction, Wilmington. If you live in those areas, you want to keep your windows closed. You want to not go outside if possible. You probably heard the explosion. You may have felt it. may have rattled your windows. We don't know. We know it was visible from as far away as Woodland Hills in the San Fernando Valley, which is over the Santa Monica Mountains and removed by some 30 miles or so, maybe more from here, probably about 35 miles or so. And our Air 7 reporter, Chris Christie, and our crew in the helicopter saw, and I believe they actually heard it when they were in the air above Woodland Hills. So it was a terrific explosion, and the result is what we're seeing here. And so what you got to look out for at this point is the smoke and the toxins that are arising from that and heading, as Dallas mentioned, in a south to southwesterly direction.
Chris, we could see from your picture from Air 7 HD just a few moments ago, it looked like more fire trucks arriving on the scene.
Yeah, those are more of the marathon trucks, but it does sound like, from what I'm hearing, LA County Fire is making entry into the refinery. You can see some of those fire trucks starting to stage right there near the main entrance. And I can only imagine, as you mentioned, Mark, what this must have felt like for this part of town. And these neighbors in this area must have felt like quite a jolt when that explosion occurred. But in the meantime, I could tell you that unlike some of the previous fires that we've covered down here, refinery fires, I should say, this is not so much a giant mushroom cloud like we've often seen in the past. It's almost creating more of a thin haze. It's burning somewhat almost cleanly, if you will, not creating that mushroom cloud that you would sometimes expect to see, that we have certainly seen in the past. But that smoke, as Dallas mentioned, is basically drifting straight up into the air, just not a whole lot of wind to carry it at this point.
Okay, well, this is, as we mentioned earlier, an area no stranger to refinery fires. Last spring, there were 2 fires at the Phillips 66 refinery, and in those cases, it took about 3 to 4 hours to put out the fires. So this may take some time, but the good news is we have no reports of anyone being injured and no reports of any evacuations in the nearby neighborhoods.
Great news. Still waiting for some official word from LA County Fire as they deal with this fire. I'm checking their Twitter feed right now. Nothing new from them. It would take a while for the PIOs, the public information or press information officers, to be apprised of this and gather information and put it out. No word yet either from the city of Carson. Probably the same things in effect there. So we are waiting for that to determine what part of the area is burning, what's adjacent to it, how long they think they can deal with this, and whether anyone has been hurt. Some of the basic elemental questions we still need answers for right now. We don't have them yet, but we're going to try to get them for you.
All right, we have Chris Christie giving us live pictures tonight, and now as we zoom out, we can see more of the landscape surrounding this area. This is the Carson area south of the 405 at Wilmington, and you can see now it is burning south of the 405. You see the 405 on the left hand of your screen there, which is closed now at Wilmington Avenue because of the fire, to keep motorists safe, just in case there is a further explosion. It doesn't seem like smoke is the reason for the freeway being shut down, Chris, but rather just the potential threat of another explosion.
Hi there. Yeah, sorry about that, Michelle. You know, I'm almost starting to wonder, you know, one of the initial reports that we got from the ground was that this is a cooling tower that was involved in the fire, and that would start to indicate that maybe we're watching hydrogen burn, or maybe a mixture of hydrogen and oil, and that might explain why we're not seeing that thick black smoke that you would expect. You could see a little bit of black smoke coming from some of the nearby pipes, so there could be some collateral damage here. But if it was indeed a cooling tower, that might not be oil as the original spark of this explosion. So it'll be interesting to see. Certainly a very sizable fire, brilliant flames shooting well into the air, and a major firefight underway here. But the size of that explosion and the clean air that we're seeing here, the clean smoke that's burning, almost makes you wonder if this was almost like a hydrogen bomb. If that cooling tower is indeed what exploded, and maybe, of course, I said in addition to any other neighboring pipelines here, but just a little bit uncharacteristic for a traditional refinery fire that we're used to seeing. Just some thoughts and observations on my part up here. None of that confirmed just yet from any of the authorities. We are reaching out to Marathon as well as LA County Fire, who's still in the process of actually making access to the refinery.
Okay, well, that would explain something if it is hydrogen, or a part of, or much of it, of what's burning is hydrogen, or was hydrogen. Hydrogen, of course, very, very explosive. So that would explain the explosion that you were able to see from Woodland Hills. Can you describe what that was like when you saw it? Because you weren't looking in this direction, I assume, when it happened, right? I mean, how did you become aware?
No, we immediately turned the camera. We heard a report and turned the camera, and we were able to see it literally from Woodland Hills right over the mountain, a huge plume of smoke coming from this area, and the bright orange glow, again, coming from the other side of the Santa Monica Mountains, as you mentioned, at least 30 miles away from this location here. So it was a dramatic sight, and then as we came over the mountain, you could clearly see the main body of flames, and that was, again, upwards of 20 to 25 miles away that we were able to actually get a really good visual of the fire. And then, of course, as we came on the air, you saw as we made our way closer, this is what indeed is burning here. But it was quite, I can only imagine what it was like for these neighbors in this immediate vicinity and other parts of the South Bay here, even as far away as Long Beach, which isn't all that far away, maybe 5 miles away. I'm sure that they must have felt something.
Yes, one would think. And as Dallas indicated, the winds, I'm sorry. We're getting word now that we have an eyewitness
Joe
on
Billings.
the phone with us. Joe Billings, can you hear us? Joe, are you there?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, Joe?
Yes, I am.
Hi, yeah.
Yes.
Turn down your TV and tell us what you saw, if you could.
Actually, I was putting my daughter to sleep in about 5 minutes ago, and we heard a big rattle, and my daughter got startled and told me, "Oh my goodness, the windows just rattled in the house. We just felt like a big old shake." And I'm only 2.4 miles away, and like I said, I can feel it. And I can actually see all the black plume and smoke rising, getting thicker, as I was getting ready to look over the window there, and all of a sudden, we heard another explosion. I thought I heard two explosions. Then we heard the alarms go off at the refinery itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what part of town do you live in, Joe?
Carson, California.
You're in Carson. You are in the city of Carson. And
yes, I am.
Are you able to smell any smoke where you are?
As of right now, I mean, I don't smell it like what I thought it was, like heavy smoke, but I can smell it now. I'm getting like a little whiff of it, but I was, advised to close the windows right away. My daughter just closed the windows. Yeah.
Have you been through this before with this refinery or others in the area?
Yes, we experienced the last fire they had there that happened, and then there was one that happened in Wilmington at the Unical 76 gas station, which was on the other side, just south of this plant right here.
Are you concerned as someone who lives in this area? I mean, if an oil refinery should have pretty good fire protection and fire prevention systems in place, and yet we seem to have to cover these with an alarming frequency. And by alarming, I mean more than never, and the fact that it continues to happen. Are you concerned at all about the level of safety in this neighborhood, in your neighborhood with these refineries?
Oh, most definitely, not just for my safety, but for others that live around the surrounding areas. If you look at the map itself, we're around a lot of refineries. You got Marathon, Unical 76, Tosco refinery, and it's you got to remember tomorrow you have school. There's a couple of schools that live in this surrounding area, so it can be pretty harmful. I did one thing I did right away is I called Cal OSHA. They're on the way out there right now. So, their alarms went off. So that's an indication something was really bad, because those alarms don't go off until something goes off really bad. But I called Cal OSHA. They're on their way coming out, checking out the scene.
And what does that alarm sound like when you hear it?
Well, I can hear it very clearly. It sounds like an air horn going off.
So let me get this straight. You heard the air horn, you heard the siren prior to the explosion?
Yes, ma'am. About 10:30. Actually, take that back. It was a little before, about 10:45. I heard it going off, and then it stopped, and then we heard the loud explosion, and then the alarm went off again, and that's when the windows rattled. So like the house just got a little jolt over here on this side of town.
And where are you? What area are you? What's the biggest cross streets near where you live?
So I'm actually right off of Avalon between Sepulveda and 223rd, just west of Avalon Village there, like you were mentioning.
Avalon between Sepulveda and
Washington Center.
223rd.
Yes, like.
Okay, so Avalon
by
Village.
Washington Center
All
Drive.
right. All right, by where?
Yes.
All right, I see. I
that
see
area.
kind of that area. So you're a couple miles away, and so you heard the alarm, some sort of emergency alert from the refinery before the explosion happened. About how long was it before
sir.
the explosion happened? Between the amount of time between the alarm going
I
off?
want to say seconds after. I mean, it went off like a big. Like a big old boom, explosion, real bad. Like, and it really rattled the windows, and the house felt like just like a big jolt.
But you said that you heard this.
Not just the plume of smoke that we're seeing, but we've seen the big. I mean, the bright effect, the light. You know, the fire itself.
So Joe, just to confirm, you heard two sirens, one just prior to the blast, and then one after the blast.
Yes, I did.
And the amount
And
of
then my son called me. He's with my wife right now. My son had called me and mentioned to me that, hey, something's on fire, and I kept my scanner on, and actually I heard the fireman dispatch out to the destination right now to Marathon Refinery.
And has anybody been in touch with you? You're not being told to evacuate. You're not being told anything from anybody
sir.
official.
No, sir.
Okay.
I actually after that explosion, completely, we just heard paramedics and firemen rushing down down Avalon.
Have you heard these sirens before? There have been other fires that you're aware of in your area with refineries. Is this something that usually happens?
No,
prior to an
major.
explosion?
Like I said, the last major fire, I don't know the exact date and time on that one, but when that fire went off, the alarms their alarms went off right away, indicating, I guess, something had happened at the plant itself. Yeah.
All right, Bob. Joe. Thank you very much. We wish you good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Are in an area kind of about 2 miles away from the refinery. We appreciate your 2.4 miles. Thank you.
2.4 miles to be exact.
Okay, Joe. Thank you very much, Mr. Kenneth Bradford. You are also a witness, sir. Are you with us?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us where you are in relation to the refinery, or what neighborhood you live in, and what you saw or heard?
Yes, I was actually on the freeway on my way home, and I just seen a big ball of fire on the freeway, and I was just so astounded by that. So when I pulled over, I took a video, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Were you on the 405, or were you on the 710? Or I guess you could have been on the 110. What freeway were you on?
I was actually...
Hello? Kenneth? Sounds like we lost Kenneth. All right, well, hopefully he'll call back and we can reestablish communication with a witness who was on the freeway and saw the huge fireball. We do know that the 405 freeway, which is very close to this, has been closed due to concerns for the motorist safety, and it is closed at Wilmington Avenue. And while we wait to get Kenneth Bradford back, hopefully, let's check back in with our Chris Christie, who's over the scene in Air 7 HD. And Chris, we've been talking about the response by the Marathon Refinery firefighters. Have you seen any county firefighters or city firefighters coming in to assist?
We'll go ahead and pull out just a little bit and see if they're still gathered at the main entrance. It still might be taking them a little bit of time. This is something that we've seen in the past where they actually stand by while Marathon does as much as they can unless they need that additional help. So they may be in a position where they can manage this. The profile of this fire is starting to change just a little bit. I would say it's slightly smaller than when we first pulled up on scene here. Still a bright orange glow lighting up the night sky here in Carson, but there is a lot of water now drowning that fire coming from a number of different directions. I can tell you that our assignment desk just got off the phone with LA County Fire, and they are not conducting any evacuations yet. Actually, that's Carson Sheriff Station, I should say. So LA County Sheriff not conducting any evacuations yet. Right now, the main precaution and the closest, most immediate precaution is the 405 shutdown that you referenced, Michelle. Traffic not stacking up too badly here. It's pretty light on a Tuesday night right now, but still a couple hundred people in both directions stuck in that traffic jam at Wilmington Avenue. So that's what you're looking at right here. That's going to be the northbound side of the 405. Sepulveda impacted as well. This is right along Wilmington Avenue, as you can see from our sky map, and that's the fire right there in the middle of the Marathon Oil Refinery, which produces a variety of different types of petroleum products. The initial report that we received was that this was a cooling tower, for what it's worth, and it does look, I don't know if you guys agree on your end, but it looks like the size of this fire is shrinking ever so slightly.
All right, well, that is good news. We have James Sterling on the phone with us now. James, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, can you tell me where you are or were when the fire broke out and what you saw and heard?
Okay, so I was literally right out front off of, what's that street? What's the cross streets exactly? It was Wilmington, and it was, I'm trying to remember correctly, I think it was Watson Center Road.
Watson Center Road, okay.
I was literally right out front. I heard a really loud whistle. I'm a patrol officer over there for a security company, but I heard a loud whistle, and next thing you know, I heard a bang and saw a flash of light. The alarms probably came on about within like 30 seconds ahead of time. And from there, next thing you know, you just start hearing the siren.
All right. So from your perspective, at Watson Center Road and South Wilmington Avenue, you're maybe like 1,000 feet or so, maybe less, from the actual entrance to the refinery there. So that's pretty close. Were you pretty scared by what you saw?
I was kind of freaked out. I just felt the car shake.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was. I kind of like pulled over to the top of the road, and I called over to my dispatch, and I hunkered down because I thought there was probably some type of shooting or a bomb or something. I did not know what it was. But like right now, I'm back at our office right now because the whole thing's going on. We're literally shutting down all of our side roads soon to our area because we don't know what the hell's going on.
Okay, well, James, we appreciate you calling in this evening. If we could keep you on hold, we'd love to talk to you as we continue to stream our coverage. We're going to have to wrap it up here soon here on ABC7. We have Jimmy Kimmel Live coming up next in just seconds away with his show, but we will continue our live streaming coverage on ABC7.com and on our ABC7 app.
And we're back live now on the ABC7 app and on ABC7.com. What you're seeing here are live pictures coming to us from the city of Carson of the Marathon Oil Refinery. This is just south of the 405 freeway on 223rd Street and Wilmington Avenue. And it has shortly before 11 o'clock tonight, there was an alarm that went off, a siren as was described by eyewitnesses, and then a huge explosion and fire. And that is the result that we're looking at here, and a very large response by both the Marathon Fire Department and the City of Carson, rather the County of Los Angeles Fire Department, which appears to be standing by on the outskirts of the facility.
Right now, the fire is being fought by the Marathon Refinery Fire Department. And we are told by LA County Sheriff's Department that no evacuations have been ordered at this time. However, this fire is seriously impacting the 405 freeway in this area right now. The freeway is closed, shut down northbound and southbound at Wilmington Avenue. And there are a number of motorists who are stuck in traffic right now. And you can imagine that because they've been sitting there for, well, almost an hour, a little bit less, that they can't wait to be given the clear and have that roadway opened up so they can get out of this area. They've been stranded for quite a long time as the firefight continues. Here we're looking at the map from Air 7 HD, and you can see that the traffic is backed up here at Wilmington Avenue, though as Chris Christie pointed out, it could be a lot worse if this had happened during the daytime instead of at night. The traffic impact could be huge, but not so bad right now. Of course, it's pretty bad if you're one of those people stuck in there right now.
Feels like forever.
Yeah.
Chris Christie, you've been overhead in Air 7 HD for within the first few minutes of this fire breaking out at the Marathon Oil Refinery. You saw it when you first got here. Can you compare what it looked like when you first got here compared to how it looks right now?
Yeah, you know, it was really, really visible from miles and miles away, and as we approached the fire, you could clearly see flames shooting a couple hundred feet in the air, burning out of control. As they've gotten more water on it, it seems to have, for a short time, shrunk a little bit, but now a little bit more rejuvenated as we come back around for another orbit here. It does look like some of that infrastructure is catching on fire. I could tell you that the northbound side of the 405 freeway, they're either relieving some of the traffic that was stuck on the 405 when they shut it down. I can't tell whether they're shutting it down at a point south of here, but at least for those few hundred motorists who were stuck in the traffic when they shut down the freeway, at least the northbound side is moving once again. They have formed a traffic break, and now it looks like they are going to escort the leading edge of the southbound traffic through here as well. So they may have made the decision that this fire is contained to the refinery and that the motorists on the 405 are no longer threatened. And it does look like now both sides, at least from our vantage point up here, it looks like both sides of the 405 are about to be wide open once again here. Still thousands of people stuck in this traffic, but hopefully things will be moving here without too much delay. And in the meantime, you can see the firefight continues. This multiple streams of water coming from the resident fire department here at the Marathon Oil Refinery. LA County Fire, as you mentioned, Mark, standing by along Wilmington Avenue in case they are needed. They will be invited in, and they will help assist in whatever way they can. So you see a number of hand lines, some water cannons, and as well some of the sprinkler systems that are built into the refinery as well. So they have water on the fire. Sometimes just accessing that maze of pipelines could pose a real problem for firefighters, and they just have to rely on sprinklers sometimes. In this case, it looks like they are managing to get a fair amount of water on there. Whether there's live oil pumping through here that's fueling the flames, too early to say. We don't have that information, only to say that the initial reports were that there was a cooling tower that was heavily involved and maybe what exploded. That may contain hydrogen. So we'll see ultimately what is actually fueling this fire. But what we have noticed is that we don't have that typical mushroom cloud, that thick black smoke that is often associated with these refinery fires. You just don't see it right now. It's a thin haze of black smoke. There is some isolated plumes every once in a while down there. You'll see some darker smoke coming from the area. But for the most part, it appears to be burning somewhat cleanly, if you will.
Comforting news for the people who live to the south and southwest of this area, who would be dealing with and will be, even with will be dealing with the toxic smoke that will be heading and wafting over their neighborhoods as the fight against this fire continues. But it could be worse, and we're glad it's not. And I'm sure the people who live near there are glad that it's not.
Okay, we have Dallas Rains who's with us now, and Dallas has been keeping an eye on the winds for us in the Carson area tonight so we can have an idea of which direction the smoke will be blowing? Dallas, what's the update?
Michelle, the winds are very light, almost calm in most of the observations in and around there. When we do see an observation of 1 to 2 miles per hour, it's generally out of the northeast, blowing what smoke there would be out to the west or southwest. So anywhere between west, southwest, down to the south would be the general direction. But again, as I mentioned, the observations show very, very weak wind patterns in that area tonight.
Okay, well, that is good to hear. Dallas, thank you. And as we continue to watch this fire now from Air 7 HD, we do have some positive developments to report, and that primarily has to do with traffic on the 405 freeway, which we are seeing moving again. And that must, I would imagine, it's an indication of the level of threat being seriously reduced, right? Because if now we're seeing the north and southbound sides open, traffic moving freely again. So I would imagine that firefighters and local law enforcement in the area feel that obviously it's safe now to have people traveling through this area. And as Chris mentioned too, it's looking a lot better than when he first was over it, when it started a little bit before 11 o'clock.
Okay, and we've got another witness on the phone with us, Arlene Galanado.
Yes, Arlene Galanado.
Okay, Arlene, can you first of all tell us where you were when the fire broke out, where you are now, and what you saw and heard?
At the residence, I was at home, and at the very beginning, it sounded like someone had slammed into the garage, and the house shook. And all of a sudden, I told my husband, well, you need to go check outside. It sounded like something went up against the house, like it could have been an earthquake. I wasn't quite sure. So he went outside to check just to make sure. And right when he walked out, he checked to the left because we're close to Dolphin Park. And there's a Del Alamo Elementary School right across from the park. And when he looked to the right, he saw the flames. I mean, he noticed how large the fire was going, and he's like, whoa, that is the refinery going off right now.
Wow. So we had some other eyewitnesses tonight. Arlene described hearing sounds prior to the explosion. Did you hear anything prior to the explosion, be it a siren or a whistling sound, or was it just quiet and then the house shook?
It was a pretty quiet night, but my husband did say that he heard some kind of a whistling sound, like horns. But that was probably when he stepped out already to investigate what was going on outside.
So that would have been after the explosion.
All right, and tell us what are the main cross streets near where you live?
The main cross street is Wilmington Avenue and 213th Street. We're right before the 405 on-ramp.
Okay, I think I see pretty much exactly where that is. Kind of, all right, yeah, 213th. Okay, so yeah, you're kind of to the west of the refinery, but fairly close too if you're off of Wilmington Avenue.
Only about a mile and a half away.
All right. Is this a concern? You know, you live near this oil refinery. We know that this one's going up now. We know that the Phillips 66 has gone up. Others in the area have gone up over the years. Is this something that you just live with and worry about all the time, or what is it like to live in the shadow of this?
Of course, we do worry about it since we are in the vicinity, but it seems like they have great procedures and protocol when it comes to this, because we've never seen it at such a bad spot in terms of it being out of control. So it seems like the refineries do have great procedures in place, and the fire department comes in and they seem to take it all into control. So we do see it from time to time, but it's not as horrific as it might sound like, because it seems like they know what they're doing.
And how long have you lived in this area, Arlene?
About 30 years.
Okay, and so how many of these fires have you experienced, would you say, if you had to guess?
Maybe four, maybe 4 fires.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
but this one, I think, is more intense.
Is this the first one that you really felt like your house was shaking from it?
Yes, because I could have sworn it was an earthquake.
Yeah.
So it kind of threw us off because we weren't really thinking it would have been an explosion, because the feel of it, how like when an earthquake, your house shakes and you just kind of like, whoa, where did that come from? So there was no forewarning, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And no, you're not under any sort of an evacuation order. No, has there been any sort of a reverse 911 notification that's gone out in the area?
No, not at all. We just do off to the outside. You do hear we heard the fire trucks and the police cars, but not in our residential area. Is there any kind of evacuation procedure?
Mm-hmm. And having experienced maybe 4 of these fires now at the various refineries in Carson as a nearby resident, generally, how does it impact you? I mean, with the other fires, was smoke an issue? Is that a concern
honestly,
for you?
the smoke doesn't seem to be a major issue after the fires. So I don't know if it's maybe just the wind's blowing it in the right direction and it just kind of evaporates nicely, but not so bad.
All right, and no damage at your house, right? No damage, and obviously no injuries. Nobody's been hurt.
Correct. But I think all my neighbors pretty much felt it. Quite a few of them came out in the middle of the street just to try to investigate too what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just when everyone's trying to go to sleep, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Arlene, we really appreciate you calling in and giving us your eyewitness account. And we're glad that everything's okay in your area. And we are happy to report there are no evacuations. And as far as we know, no one's been injured. And thank you again.
Thank you for keeping on top of all of this, too. Thank you for all the great shots. We were watching it on TV.
Well, we're trying our best, and the person who's in the helicopter that's getting those shots for us is our Chris Christie. He was in Woodland Hills when this thing first started. There was other breaking news. This was one of those busy nights where just everything was popping all over the place. There was a person being rescued from a construction trench in Woodland Hills. He was over that. And then we got the report about this. And Chris, can you describe what it was like for you way up in Woodland Hills, some 30 or more miles away? When you saw
this.
The
second we heard about it, Mark, we turned the camera, peered over the Santa Monica Mountains, and you could clearly see that thick plume of smoke, which is nothing the way this looks now. It was a very thick, tall mushroom cloud effect that was initially created when this explosion occurred. And actually, we're now getting word from LA County Fire. Their official word now is that there was an explosion that preceded a fire in a cooling tower here at the refinery. So some interesting timeline, interesting aspects of this timeline when you consider that one of our callers who we had that phoner with just a short time ago mentioned that he had heard sirens that preceded the explosion. So it'll be interesting when all of this kind of comes together. But after that initial explosion, which created a huge fireball enveloping much of the refinery and smoke that was seen for many, many miles away, as we got closer down the 405, you could see that it was a very defined body of flames with not a whole lot of remnants in terms of smoke left over. In fact, that's the case right now. Despite the very, very vivid flames that we're looking at here, and as tall as these flames are, you don't see a lot of smoke associated with this. And that could be for any number of reasons. As I just mentioned, they are confirming, in fact, that this was a fire that started in a cooling tower and that they are now working to depressurize the entire system. So that's a good sign. If they can eventually do that, that will give them better access to the fire, and I would imagine that the fuel will be choked off that is fueling this fire. They do have a number of ground monitors in place already, and you can see several streams of water coming from basically every single direction around this fire. So they seem to be making good progress. They're following their protocols down there and taking all of the steps that they have been trained. They train for these refinery fires on a very regular basis. Marathon has their own fire department on the premises there, and that is the department that is doing a bulk of the work here. There are additional LA County fire units that have arrived on scene. They are lining up along Wilmington Avenue near the entrance to the refinery, but for right now, they're basically staging there and standing by, waiting for further instructions, Mark and Michelle.
Okay, Chris, thank you. We have our Josh Haskell now in the area on the ground, and we can check in with him for a live report now. Josh?
Yeah, Michelle, we are on South Wilmington. We are just before you hit East 223rd. And I want to step out of the way. This is as close as we are allowed to get. That is the 405 freeway. You can see that there is traffic moving on the 405 freeway. And in the distance, you see that smoke that you guys have been seeing for really the last hour from this particular fire. California Highway Patrol has Wilmington here shut down, but when cars come off the 405, as you can see here, they just can't make a left towards the Marathon Refinery, but cars are getting off here, and they are basically being directed towards Del Amo. We are here on Wilmington, and then in the distance, as we pan a little bit more to the right, you can see there's a Shell gas station and a Chevron gas station. We tried to get to that point because just on the other side of that is where the refinery is. But authorities here, the CHP, said we are not going to let you get past that yellow tape that you're seeing that is really blocking any traffic here. So this is about as close as we can get here in Carson, and it is good news that we are not seeing the sky lit up as we were earlier. We are seeing some smoke there in the distance from this particular incident, and as everyone knows who has come down to this part of Carson, Marathon is not the only refinery here, and there are just these refineries occupy so much land down here that once you get to East 223rd, which we can't access, it's just right down there. It takes you quite a long time to get around and traverse, and that's why this is about as close as we can get right now at the moment. But I can tell you we did see some fire engines as we were arriving, and they were staging closer to Del Amo even. But the CHP at this point, although they have shut down this area, they seem to be not letting any cars through, and I'm not seeing it as urgent as when we first pulled up, not seeing any fire engines speed by us or anything like that. Mark and Michelle, send it back to you.
All right, well, that is all encouraging, and we appreciate that sense of perspective from the ground there outside this refinery, the Marathon Refinery in Carson, from our Josh Haskell. If we could get a wider picture from Air 7 HD, something to point out that really makes, adds a point to the fact that the 405 is reopened now to traffic. You see that the fire is diminishing. Traffic on the 405 now being allowed to go past the area, and that is all good news. And part of the reason for that is that the storage tanks where the oil would be stored, and the real huge explosive hazard, that's quite a bit removed from where the actual out-of-control fire is. The storage of the oil and gasoline is pretty far away, and that is, of course, one of the elements of design of a petroleum refinery plant, an oil refinery, is that you want to keep the big, the stuff that's really going to go boom far away from anything that could potentially catch fire. And that's what's happened here, and that's why this fire, although big, is confined to what appears to be a cooling tower.
That's a really good point, very good observation, Mark. And what we garnered from Josh Haskell's report just moments ago, Wilmington Avenue is closed in this area. Okay, I'm just hearing now from our producer that we have an LA Fire captain with us.
Captain IMBRENDA. Tony.
Captain
Yes,
Tony
sir.
IMBRENDA, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Captain, can you please give us an update?
Okay. Well, currently I received a briefing about 15 minutes ago, and I'm en route to the incident, so I don't have eyes on it, so you'll have to bear with me with the information that is most current that I've gotten, and that is essentially that there's a full first alarm assignment from LA County Fire Department, LA City Fire Department, and Long Beach Fire Department. And currently these units are being used in a support role as the internal fire brigade inside the Marathon Refinery takes the lead, which is typical of these incidents. Right now, I understand there's some equipment on fire, there's some off-gassing occurring, and there's an active firefight. Of course, they've got specific equipment, specific firefighting agents that are on scene, in addition to engineers that are familiar with the facility. So it is typical for them to take the lead on any type of fire activity, and the area fire departments will roll in resources, stage them, and then we will work with them in support as the incident shakes out. So engineers will work to try to cut off that fuel source. Area fire companies will come in and direct master streams on equipment that's adjacent to where the fire's at to ensure that we keep stuff cool and keep that radiant heat from allowing fire to spread from where the fire is emanating to adjacent equipment. So that's the current state of things right now.
Okay, Captain and Brenda, nice to hear from you again. This is Mark Brown. And just the point that you were making here, it's really not at this point about putting it out. You can't really put it out with just some streams of water directed at a fire that's fueled by petroleum, but it's about keeping it from spreading and then shutting off the supply of fuel. And that's when you're really going to make some progress, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the way I would characterize it. That's typically the way these things go. We generally don't dump the firefighting agents directly on what's burning, but it all depends on the specific situation. You know, we're talking about chemicals here. They all have different characteristics. Depending on what phase it's in, if it's a full liquid, if it's a gas, if we're dealing with a vapor. A lot of different parameters are going to dictate what type of hose streams we're going to use, what type of firefighting agents, and the tactics that we're going to utilize. So currently my understanding is the fire brigade that's operating inside, and of course the ground monitors that are in permanent installations inside these facilities are all actively engaged in keeping radiant heat from allowing for spread. And, you know, as you said, the engineers will work to mitigate that fuel source and, you know, start getting this fire under control.
Mm-hmm. And Captain, in your experience, how long do these refinery fires typically burn?
Well, I've been to a number of them, and it can vary. There's, you know, certainly enormous engineering challenges. You know, you've got a lot of radiant heat that's emanating from this equipment, so it can be difficult to get personnel close to where they need to be to you know, mitigate the leak. So right now, with having very limited information, it appears as though they're in this process of continuing to evaluate exactly what the strategy is going to be to get that fuel source shut off. I know that we still got active fire and still got a number of heavy streams in use. As far as the number of units engaged from LA County Fire, I'm not clear on that at this point. As soon as I get to the incident, I should have some better information for you.
And real quickly, I know we're running out of time in terms of being able to talk to you right now, but as you know, you say you've been to a number of these, and are you concerned at all that these oil refiners are taking enough steps to prevent a fire from breaking out? Is it possible? Are they doing enough? Is there something going on here? Because it seems like we've been reporting on quite a few of these lately.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard to say, you know, not being an expert on these facilities personally. I can tell you, you know, I concur there has been an uptick in these incidents in recent months. And, you know, what the reason is for that, I couldn't speak to. All I could tell you is how we handle them when they do arise. But, you know, absolutely, we have seen a few more of these in recent months than it's been typical in recent years because, you know, we're talking about facilities that produce an enormous amount of product and really, you know, for the longest time have maintained impeccable safety records. But as I said, we've had a little run lately, and it seems to be that way in firefighting. We have runs of activity in the brush, in the industrial setting, in structures, and you know it seems to be that's the industry that's being affected recently. Engineering reasons for why that's happening unclear.
Captain and Brenda, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we are getting word that we need to catch up with a live report from the ground right now. But we do thank you very much for joining us and giving us that very important information. Thank you so much, and good luck tonight. All right, let's go back to Josh Haskell for another check on the situation from the ground level. Josh?
Yeah, that's right. I can tell you that good news that we are seeing traffic moving in both directions, it appears, on the 405 freeway, and the CHP still has this whole area here on Wilmington shut down as I step out of the way, and we can show you in the distance that you can see that smoke. I'm hearing the occasional siren, thinking that it might be more resources heading here, but it really is just the CHP maintaining this area, controlling these closures, making sure those drivers that get off of the 405 that they do not make a left towards the Marathon refinery. And I got to tell you, Mark and Michelle, that just within the last minute or two, I started to smell a little bit of sort of a smoky type smell. But as my photographer pointed out, and as some of the drivers that I've been speaking to have told me here, that is not uncommon for some of the refineries down here. Some of these drivers didn't even know what was going on because they were on their way to work or other jobs, and they just often see not explosions, nothing like we've seen tonight, but they do see, as I just want to show you in the distance, that is not part of what this incident is tonight, but we do know when you're driving on the 405 freeway, you often do see fuel burning on purpose at some of these refineries, and that's why these folks didn't exactly seem fazed by it or know what was going on. So that is the scene here in Carson. I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, Josh, having grown up not far from there, I can attest to that the glow that you often see at night can be from a controlled flare, something that's done on purpose and not something out of control, so it wouldn't necessarily seem all that out of the ordinary to see an orange glow in the sky coming from that part of the community. Let's go to Chris Christie very quickly in Air 7 HD. Chris.
Yeah, Mark, that glow is still very, very prevalent in this part of Carson. I can tell you that the LA County Carson Sheriff's Department Carson Station says that they have secured a perimeter around the refinery, and they are now supporting the efforts here, but they do not expect to need to conduct any evacuation. So some good news there. You see that the freeway has opened back up. They are making progress getting water on the fire, and the Marathon Oil refinery personnel now trying to depressurize all of those pipelines before they can really choke off the fuel to this fire. But you can see some high pressure gas lines there with those really intense orange flames shooting through all of that infrastructure. It's going to be quite some time before they get the upper hand on this one, guys.
Okay, Chris Christie, thanks very much. And Chris needs to head back with Air 7 HD back into the valley because Air 7 HD is actually running low on fuel, not in a dangerous way, but we need to conclude our coverage as Air 7 HD needs to go and fuel up. And we will be bringing you more coverage of this fire starting on Eyewitness News at 4 a.m. And you can always get the latest updates throughout the evening on our website, ABC7.com, and on the ABC7 Los Angeles app. Thanks for watching.